Hey everyone, welcome back to the Luxury Rental Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Rachel Gainsborough and I am your host today. I'm so thrilled. We have Tim Stanton, the co founder of Reclamation Design Studio, here with us out of the Austin market. Tim, he actually cut his teeth on shaping stories at GQ, guys. Okay, so lean in, lean in. We got a celebrity in the house. And he even led the marketing team for an AI company before diving headfirst into the boutique real estate design world. Tim, welcome, my friend.
Hello, it's nice to see you.
Oh my gosh, nice to see you as well. Okay, so Tim, you started in New York City, then switched into Airbnb interior design with storytelling. What was that light bulb moment for you?
Yeah, there's this quote that I tether back to, and it's by Pablo Picasso. He says, "Every child is an artist, and the
Mm,
problem is how to remain an artist once they grow up." And so much of the story in my adult life was stuffing down this like innate
mm,
calling for me to create things and to be an artist. And I felt like culture and society was just like forcing me to be a niche expert. And I really
mm.
felt this pressure to be an earner and to make a lot of money. And I come from humble beginnings in my family. And so
Yeah.
I want to step into a better life that my parents sacrificed for. But for me, for a decade of my life, that came at the cost of me chasing the bright corporate lights in that paycheck. And there was just something inside of me that felt like I was called to more. And
Mm,
I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but I feel the most fulfilled in my life when I'm creating something and providing value. And so for me, I'm from a small town in Colorado, and I got to move
mhm.
to New York City in the bright lights, and I had this opportunity to work with GQ magazine as a young wide-eyed 27-year-old kid, and it really inspired me. And to be in New York City around all of the culture, the fashion, Broadway, you're surrounded by the best artists in the entire world.
Mm.
And being in New York just really got me inspired creatively. And when the pandemic hit, that was a forcing mechanism for me to leave the city. I had a 400 square foot apartment and I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I left on March 17th, 2020. I came to Austin. I thought it would blow over after a couple weeks, but 2 weeks turned into a couple months. And then I was like, you know what? I could really like get rooted. And there was something really beautiful about slowing down for me. And
Mhm.
I ended up quitting my W 2 job when the pandemic hit, and I started flipping houses in Austin. And that was my start of taking
Yeah.
kind of like my creative experience in New York and applying it to
Mhm.
real estate.
So then what would you say are those lessons from that high pressure media role? I mean, we look, on the outside looking in, we're like, oh, that must be nice. You're taking photos with celebrities and you're rubbing elbows with some of the top tier folks in the space. But there has to be some high pressure in there as well. So, what would you say are some of the lessons that you learned from that high pressure environment that you have brought into your hospitality decision making?
That's such a good question. I would say New York is such a pressure cooker. Like everyone goes to
Mm,
New York because they have a dream and they're
yeah.
chasing something, whether it's success to be the best on Wall Street, the best on Broadway, whatever it might be. The level of excellence is so incredibly high as a result, and you have the best of the best of the best in the entire world, like
Yeah.
the most talented creatives. And I think for me, it set the bar so high
Mm.
on what excellence really was. And it's almost like a rubber band that gets stretched. It's once you pass that point of experiencing something, you can't actually go back to the original form of that rubber band. And for me, once I
Yeah.
was able to experience that level of excellence, I'm like, that bar is just set. And no matter what I do, I can't lower it. And it is like that rubber band being stretched. It's not going to return to its original form. So for me, it was really just like expanding my ability to think creatively, but also like almost kind of chase perfection and pursue excellence.
Your work speaks for itself. Okay, so let's talk about short term rentals and real estate for a moment. Specifically, let's talk about some of the booking killers. What would you say, Tim, are the top two to three overlooked design mistakes that you see time and time again that really kills the bookings and really gets, I would say, negative guest reviews?
Yeah, well, I feel that when people are thinking about their STR, there's so many different plates that you have to keep spinning from,
Mm,
which property to acquire, who's going to clean it. The numbers are obviously huge and making sure
yeah.
they pencil out. And I feel like design is one of the things that kind of gets put on the back burner a little bit. And
Mm,
what's really interesting though is that putting your best foot forward with design is the most important thing, and it's the number one thing that the guest is using to inform their decision making on booking your B&B. It's like, how do we stop the scroll? It's going to be the first photo that they see, and that often is it's either good or it's bad. And essentially, for me, like what I see is most people treat design like decor, and they'll essentially toss in trendy furniture and they kind of like just hope for the best. But I feel like that's dressing a mannequin and then expecting it to host a dinner party. Like design is all about experience. And the
mm,
top three things that I see people overlook is there's no narrative. Like a beauty, it could be
mm,
really, really beautiful, but it doesn't have a soul, then it's forgettable. And
mm.
ultimately, forgettable doesn't get booked. And these younger generations, I'm a millennial, even Gen Z, like so much of what drives them is that unforgettable experience. Like the younger generation is spending their money on experiences and things that they can document and things that they can show their friends, and that's something that they really value. So that would be one. Number
Mhm.
two is a little more simple and direct than that, but that's bad lighting. And for everyone that's in the healthcare field listening to this, no one wants to feel like they're staying at a doctor's office or a dentist office. There's a
Darn
time
it.
and a place for that, but it ain't your Airbnb. And bad lighting is something that's so easily fixable. And just as a quick hack, the color temperature, you could probably tell like really bright fluorescent light versus really
Mhm,
warm and inviting light. That's called
mhm,
color temperature. And it's
mhm,
basically measured by degrees Kelvin. So
mhm.
my
Yep.
rule of thumb is always staying below 2500 degrees Kelvin to keep that warmer tone. Because a lot of times I see the photos on Airbnb and it's just such a bright, like imagine that fluorescent light, and it just doesn't feel warm and inviting.
Mhm.
So that's number two. Number three is cluttered layouts. And
Okay.
if
Yeah.
guests can't instantly tell where to drop their bags, where to brew a cup of coffee, that friction really kind of like bleeds into their review. So it's like
Mhm.
you want to create a really like obvious space that's easy for the guests to engage in. And there's actually a term for it. It's called the Gruen effect. And this is something
Mm.
that IKEA does. IKEA takes you on this very strategic maze as you go through their space
Yeah.
to have you feel some sort of emotion and also
Mm.
observe other things along your journey that you didn't necessarily come for.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've adopted when designing Airbnbs. But we're like, the moment they pull in the driveway to walking in the door, what is that experience that we're taking them on from room to room to
Mm.
room? And they might not have came for certain things that we put in the space, but ultimately we want to engage those other senses and kind of like have that element of surprise. And one thing I see that immediately eliminates that is cluttered layouts. Is people feel like more is better, and it just feels really chaotic in your soul, and it's not something that feels inviting, cozy, and it doesn't really create that really unforgettable experience.
So good. So we had the pleasure of having you inside of our mastermind and presenting to our members, and that was amazing. After that call, though, Tim, we were evaluating properties in a particular market, and I'm going completely off subject for a moment because I thought this was interesting based on what you just said about Gen Z and millennials wanting an experience. So as we're evaluating Dr. Ashley's potential properties, um, the comps, they were all just almost identical. They were doing pretty well. But then there was this one property. I was like, oh my gosh, this one looks terrible. The walls are red. It looked like a speakeasy. Like it looked like nothing you would see in the neighborhood. I
Mm.
believe there was a dancing pole in the property as well. Every room was like themed to the hilt. The cabinets were painted pink. And as I'm going through, I'm like, yeah, this one, yeah, we're not even going to add it. Once I opened it up, it was the most profitable property in the market. I was like, oh, excuse me. Everyone else was cookie cutter, agreeable gray on the walls, gray furniture. But this one, there was over 100 guest reviews. Everyone else had 12 guest reviews. And you open up the reviews, it was every week. There was a review. We had a great time. Oh my gosh, it's space. I was like, I see. I see. Not my style, but nevertheless, an experience. They legitimately knew who their avatar was. It was wild. It was gaudy. I hated everything about it. But you know what? I said, guess what, guys? We're going to look at this listing again. What can we extrapolate? What are the lessons to learn from this? Because there were lessons to be learned.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's a common theme that I see too. Is that gaudy feel? You'd be like, oh, that doesn't seem like it would work. Maybe not for your personal residence, but as
Right.
people are just getting out there, they want something that's maybe different and disruptive.
Mhm.
We try to really like thread the needle because oftentimes to create that gaudy like over the top experience you're spending money on disco balls and
Yeah.
pink paint and glitter and things of that nature, which those actually don't increase any sort of resale value. So everything that we do, we want to make sure we have the end in mind as we
Yeah.
create and design, and make sure that the changes that we're making to the property are actually going to increase your resale value if and when you decide to put it on the market and sell.
Yeah. So this essentially leads to my next question because I want to expand on this a little bit. What would you say is like one branding faux pas that tells guests, "Hey, you're in a cookie cutter rental instead of like a nice curated experience?"
That's such a good question. So I liken STR. I really love to do this, but I liken STR to a boutique hotel. And I look at a boutique hotel. I'm like, why are they so good? And how do they create and prompt the emotion?
Yeah.
And what you just said, I think the faux pas is
Mm.
actually that we have people that have short-term rentals, but they don't
Yeah.
have a brand.
Yeah.
So you're competing in the marketplace for the same consumer, but a
Mhm.
boutique hotel that has a really beautiful, thoughtful brand and a story compared to a B&B that maybe is just, I'm at a number and an address, like you're just completely at a disadvantage. So for us, we really treat every listing like a lifestyle brand. And we believe that
Mhm.
luxury isn't just about like higher thread count, but it's how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
And the starting block for that is really like the core identity. Is like who lives
Mm.
here, what's the backstory, what's the point of view, and then from there we really build this like visual brand with a logo and even lean into like sensory cues that support the story and like the narrative that you're telling. And this even like what the scent that you put in the space. Like, does that
Mm.
match the profile of your avatar? And like
Yeah.
tailoring the welcome notes, even like typography that match the mood.
Yeah.
And for us, we really like to create a world, not just a place where people sleep. And that's a can seem like a tall order and a difficult
Yeah.
task, but we're able to level the playing field when we create kind of like the branding and the story for short-term rental properties.
Yeah, and thank you for breaking that down because when we think of brand, typically it's like, okay, let's get the little logo and place it on all the little bottles. We have a brand. But I love the way that you express the different elements that are involved. It's not just the logo, it's not just, maybe fancy furniture. However, there are elements down to our senses. What are you smelling? So that's really, really key, I think, and it's something that we often don't think about. Could you talk a little bit more about that? What are some of the other branding elements that we may overlook that's most likely not too heavy of a lift to implement?
Yeah, logo is one component of it, obviously, but the
Mhm.
story is probably the most important part. And if you go to a boutique hotel, you'll
Yeah.
notice that they're taking a theme and then they're basically that theme manifests on every single property that
Mhm.
the business puts in front of you, that boutique. So from digital, whether that's their website, from the photography, they're actually pulling from that theme. So call it Southwestern. The photography style is going to lean into that. The website is going to lean into that. The color palette is going to lean into that. And then bridge that to the digital space. It's the same thing. It's like, how does the brand show up in the house? And obviously, it's the furniture, it's the paint, it's the visual aesthetic of what it looks like. But those little things that you kind of alluded to, it's like a personally branded coffee cup with the logo of a your B&B on it. Even
Yeah.
like merchandise. That's another way for
Mm.
B&B owners that are really serious in building a portfolio. It's like, how do you create those things that are going to stick with people? Because ultimately we want people to take a piece of that brand story with them. So whether that's a tote bag, a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, a coffee cup, a coaster, that's really important because those are the people that are actually going to help you move off platform. They're following your account on Instagram, they're telling their friends, and maybe they're even like a repeat visitor. So there's so many different ways for that brand to show up both digitally and in person. And it honestly just depends like what level of B&B you're trying to create. And that is something though that differentiates you from the masses for sure.
Love that. Love that. I love that storytelling aspect of it, just the creative side, because as medical professionals, oftentimes we do not have an opportunity to exercise some of our creativity. But at the end of the day, we are here for the money, honey. So let's talk about the numbers. Is there a project that you could walk us through where you have seen the intentionality with the design transform the revenue that the property is making? What was the before and after?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Austin, Texas, we reimagined this like really bland four-bed duplex that was in the heart of East Austin. And essentially what we did is we created this fictional home for Jack and Jackie. And to take a step back, Jack and Jackie is a Gen Z version of JFK and Jackie Kennedy. And so essentially, we created this concept where these two are living their best lives in this kind of like retro meets modern Austin. And it all started from this $25 Facebook marketplace find. And it was a portrait of JFK, but not the way that like history remembers him. He's like this hipster JFK with this really modern haircut. He's got a nose ring and just like this effortless coolness that really felt more like East Austin than Oval Office. And um, that's when the question kind of hit us is like, what if we took Jack and Jackie and they never went into politics, but instead of shaping the course of history, they were shaping the vibe of like an East Austin Airbnb? And what if they were like modern day hosts that were really like deeply embedded in the cultural fabric of Austin that's really known for its creative spirit? So we basically designed every corner around this story. We had really bold color blocking. We had this vintage like diner style kitchen, even like JFK inspired welcome messages that we would send the Airbnb guests and even had like around the house. And we thought that we weren't really sure how this would land because this was our most creative endeavor like to date. And within 30 days of having that listing up, the first live month that we had was 40% more than the average year over year from the two previous years. And it was beyond like the 2021 numbers. On the Airbnb platform. And what's crazy is Austin is so saturated with Airbnb. And in 2021, there were I believe, 2,000 Airbnbs in the marketplace. Now there's 10,000. So there's
Wow.
a lot of competition. And what was really cool is we kind of like balled out on a budget on this. We didn't add a pool, we didn't add a hot tub, we didn't do anything crazy. All we
Yeah.
did was create this like really rich story, and it was really cool because it resonated with people. And then we like began to attract like influencers and podcasters that just wanted to like use the space for content and have
Yeah.
something that's like a little quirky and cool, which is
Yeah.
totally the spirit of Austin. So that's the one that's like most top of mind, and I'm most excited about because it's one of our most recent ones that we've done.
Love that. That sounds too fun. And I look forward to visiting Jack and Jackie in the near future as well. All right. So, for someone who is just getting started and say their budget is a little bit tight, what would you say are the top maybe 2 to 3 high impact design changes that they can make today?
I'm so I'm so glad you asked that. Um, Number one is invest in signature pieces. And what I
Mm,
mean by that is like it could be a statement chair or an art piece, but something that
mhm,
sparks curiosity and that can become the quote unquote photo that
mm,
drives bookings. And one thing that I do see a lot of people do is they put some really like smaller artwork pieces together, and they're
mhm.
afraid to go really really like big scale. But the
Yeah.
thing is, think about like what that signature piece is, and if it is, a beautiful like grandfather chair, someone's gonna sit in and take a photo and send. But that would be number one. Number two is to create a moment or like a focal point, and it's like design that quote unquote wow moment. That could
Mm,
be something as simple as like a reading nook or like a selfie mirror, or maybe even a super vibey like entryway. But that becomes the anchor point for storytelling and also like social sharing. And ultimately that's the behavior that we want to spur from that. And then the last one I'll say is like, I'm going back to the lighting. I'm such a big
mm,
proponent of great lighting, but layer the lighting. Like most
mm,
rentals just have the can lights, the overhead lights,
mhm,
which just totally flatten the mood. Like the reason why you have all of that lighting from above is for the light to be dispersed super evenly across the entire space. And so what it does is like I said, it just flattens the mood. So if you add floor lamps, wall sconces, like dimmers, this instantly elevates the vibe of the whole place, and it creates a lot of intrigue. Think like the more shadows, kind of like the better. And at the end of the day, lighting is emotional, and
mm.
your guests are probably never going to mention this directly, but it's something they feel and it's in the subconscious. So those would be my three.
So good. Oh my goodness. Taking notes. I have learned so much during this episode. Tim, are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Yes, I am. Let's get it. I'm excited for
Okay.
this.
Yeah, awesome. Can you share a moment when you felt completely burnt out? And what are some tips to overcome that burnout?
Oh my gosh, you're bringing me back to some trauma. I'm gonna need a session with my therapist
Oh,
after this. But
session.
uh, burnout is something that happens to me frequently, and it's something I'm really working on. But coming from New York City, I spread myself way too thin across
Mm,
volunteering in church, working a job, taking on a renovation project, um, leading, volunteering, all of these things. And
yeah.
I think so many people that are high capacity individuals have this turbo kind of ability with bicycle brakes, turbo brain bicycle brakes. And for me, it's like, how do I make sure that I'm not spreading myself a mile wide and an inch deep? And I've really tried to take a more focused approach in my life because I have this like savior complex or like the superhero complex where I want to help everyone. I want to do everything, and it's kind of the entrepreneur dilemma that you and I have talked about. It's like that
Yeah.
that shiny object syndrome, and I've had to learn to say no and
Yeah.
really do some unearthing in my own life to figure out, okay, who has God called me to be? What are the things that I'm supposed to be doing and working on? And then just
Yeah.
being ruthless about my commitment to those things, and then
Mm.
saying no to things that don't align with like my purpose and my calling.
I love that. I love that so much. And I know we're in rapid fire, but I have a follow-up question. So, do you have a specific like trigger that tells you, "Hey, it's time to do a gut check," or I wish ChatGPT could send me an alert. It's like, "Hey, have you been working on other things that you're not supposed to be working on, or something?" Right? Is there a trigger, or do you feel it once you start to really feel the burnout? You're like, "Okay, let me take a step back. I'm probably burning the candle at both ends." How are you navigating that?
For me, it's monitoring how short my fuse is in my
Mm.
home life. And if
Ooh,
I
that
find
part.
myself flying off the handle with Mrs. Stanton, that is a tall tale sign that I need to chill and I need to relax,
Oof.
because I I'll get emotionally frayed, and that's I come
Mhm.
unglued. And unfortunately, my home life is usually at the end of the day when I've reached the end of like my
Your
best
rope.
energy has been poured
Yeah.
out. So I'm learning to guard that and protect it to make
Mm.
sure I'm not running on E. But usually the way my wife reacts to me is a very good indicator and a mirror of where I'm at.
Oh
And
my gosh.
um, yeah, so hopefully that was
I felt
helpful in some
that.
way.
No, I felt
Wow.
that. And a lot of our medical professionals, you work those 14-hour shifts. You come home and I typically have a pretty good disposition, but when I worked those 14-hour shifts, I was mean. Like, yeah, your arm is falling off. Get over it. Like, it's just so mean. And I know that someone's listening right now, and it's so resonating. It is so resonating. That is the sign to take a step back and invest in some real estate so you can cut back on your W-2
Totally.
hours. Right? Okay, question number two. What's a tool, a resource, a podcast, a book that you're using right now and you're really loving it for whether it's business or life or the both?
Yeah, I would. It's a book. It's
Okay.
called The Last Arrow by Erwin
Oh.
McManus, and it talks about how to save nothing for the next life. And so
Oh.
much of the undercurrent of the book talks about community, and it talks
Mm.
about finding your tribe. And it does a really great job of like framing this up. But it's like, if you're a lion, run with the lions. If you're a gazelle, run with the gazelles. If you're a zebra, find the zebras. And I think oftentimes in my life, I've tried to run. If I'm a lion, I'm trying to run and be in the herd of the zebras, but I'm not wired that way. So it's really held up a mirror to me
Mm.
for me to take inventory of my inner circle to figure out, am I in my herd? Am I in my tribe of people in my inner
Mm.
circle that are going to encourage me, sharpen me, challenge me, etc., and not trying to run with people that aren't cut from the same cloth, you know?
I'm pulling up Audible right now. I take action. Yeah, right there, the last arrow. That's so good. And that's a question that I had a few years ago where I realized the conversations that I was having, I really couldn't have it with my current circle. So
Mm.
yeah, I really had to elevate my circle, but I want to do another little gut check there. So thank you. All right. What's a crazy story, real estate related, that you may have experienced or heard?
This one I experienced. It's a little bit of a in a somber tone, but when I was flipping houses,
Mm.
our general contractor stepped on a rusty nail,
Mm.
and he was pre-diabetic.
Oh
And
my
long
gosh.
story short, that wound went untreated for a day too long, and he got an infection,
Oh
and he
my
had to
gosh.
have his foot amputated.
Amputated.
And
Oh
it
my
was,
gosh.
we were in the hospital with him every day praying. But I left my W-2 to flip houses, and then within a couple months that happened. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? This
What
isn't just
the
like,
heck?
a ghost behind a wall of a
Yeah.
demolition that we were doing, but like, to that became so real to me, and
Oh my gosh.
just put life into perspective. And it's, just being, again, level of excellence, to go back to the opening, is, hey, making sure you cross every T, dot every I. And you can't do all of that by yourself or on your own, but even securing the safety, of a construction zone. So that was a really crazy story. The good news is he's thriving, he's healthy, he's good, and he's reinvented his life. And I think it's really like created contours within his life to learn more about himself and what's really important. So that is a crazy story. I hope we don't have to end on that note, because it's not
Oh
the
my
best one.
goodness.
But it's a
But
crazy
it
one.
is. It's a part of life. It's a part of life. Wow. You just never know. And I'm just so grateful that you didn't just throw in the towel. You're like, I'm not doing this
Oh,
anymore. Goodness gracious. I
well,
probably
I
would
don't
be
flip houses
freaking
anymore. Now I'm
freaking
on
out.
the design side full time. So
There you
I'm not going
go.
to have
There
to
you
cross
go.
that bridge again, hopefully.
Oh my goodness. Tim, tell the people how can they find you. We will add all of your contact information in the show notes, guys. So definitely keep an eye on this channel. Follow Tim on all the places.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity. Our company is Reclamation Design Studio. You can go to reclamationatx.com, and you can find me on Instagram. My handle is Tailored Tim, like a tailored suit. And I look forward to hearing from anyone that's listening. And Rachel, thank you so much for the opportunity. You are a great friend, amazing podcast host, and I'll do this anytime you'll have me. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Tim, I just want to thank you so much because not only did you share some insights, they were actually actionable. So, for someone right now who's listening, thinking to themselves, okay, I'm dealing with oversaturation. How do I pivot? How do I make sure my property is peacocking amongst the crowd and the sea of other rentals? And you, my friend, can do that through strategic design and storytelling. And please check out Tim's site. I'm obsessed. I love everything about it. Guys, the results speak for themselves. Be sure to check out Reclamation Design Studio online. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review. Until next time, this is the Luxury Rental Doctor podcast, helping you design your way to greater profitability, my friends. Bye bye for now.